Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to chapter 16, right? And we're going to be talking over something that's kind of like support and resistance, right? But it's actually going to be called a supply and demand area, right? And this is going to be really important. And supply and demand is kind of like support and resistance, right? But there's a couple of things that are different, right? Supply and demand is, of course, just like a support and resistance, right? Support and resistance, right? If an area gets down to this level, right, you're going to expect price to get off from the upside. And if it's used as resistance, we're going to drop, right? Supply and demand is the same thing, right? But supply and demand is considered to be, you know, a little bit more stronger, right? And you can put these in like the quotes, right? You know, they can be stronger. These supply and demand areas raises probability, right? And that's the key thing, right? That's the most important thing, is that it raises probability, right? Trading is all about probability, and there's going to be a chapter later that's going to tell you about how to approach the market and your mindset, right? And that's the biggest thing, right? Is that every time you take a trade and every time you analyze the market, what you're doing is building confluences to raise the probability of a trade, right? In trading and stocks and options, everything like that, nothing is certain, nothing is given, never, ever, ever, ever. The market has crashed multiple times. The market will crash again. So in supply and demand, right, these are stronger levels that raises probability, right? Which means you're taking a trade off these levels is a very high probability trade, right? And the difference with supply and demand area is that you can actually trade it from our different, you know, setups, right? It's a whole different setup, right? Whole different setup. And what I mean by that is that when you have a supply and demand area and you've seen and you kind of marked off the levels as to what makes a supply and demand area, you can take a trade off with a setup off the supply and demand area that doesn't have any other confluences, right? This is the only time that you don't need like 4 confluences to take a trade, right? When you have a supply and demand area and you set it up and you match it up with price action, right? And reading candlesticks, right? Supply and demand and price action is just as good as a trade that has, you know, a Fibonacci level, that has the moving average, right? That has a trend line, right? It's better than a trade. It's not even better. It's just on the same scenario as, you know, those setups right there, right? So a supply and demand level can actually set you up for a completely different type of setup that relies solely on price action. Now, what is price action? Price action is literally just reading what the candles are doing, right? So if I'm looking over here, right, and I'm looking at, oh, well, price has rejected this area 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. At some point, I think it's going to drop, right? It's not breaking through. And guess what happens, right? You just simply read price action and price drops, right? Now, again, you can take a trade simply off of supply and demand and price action right here, right? Simply off some supply and demand and price action. And what I have right here marked off in black is a supply and demand area that you could have traded 2, 3, 4 times. You could have traded this trade 4 times, right? Off literally just supply and demand and price action. Now, let me tell you something. Do not get greedy, right? Do not get greedy, because there's some things to know about supply and demand area, right? But we're going to just mark off the basics, right? Supply and demand area is a much stronger support and resistance area that raises the probability, right? Because it's stronger, right? If it's stronger, it's going to raise the probability of price breaking through that level or bouncing off that level, whatever you're hoping to do, right? This is a different type of setup, right? So just to go over it again, this setup doesn't need all the confluences you have. If you have them for some reason, somehow, cool, that's even better, right? But you don't need the Fibonacci, the trend line, the moving averages, the head and shoulders. You don't need all of that, right? You simply need supply and demand, and you need price action, right? Now, what do I mean by that, right? This is a supply and demand area right here where price has failed to break, right? It's failed to break 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times right here. You could see price literally rejecting this level 5 times, right? And when you think it's gonna break above, it never came back down and retested. It just broke under, right? So how do you take the trade off of supply and demand area, right? Well, you know, let's see right here, right? in this point in time, there's no reason to believe that this is a supply and demand area, right? Why? Because there's nothing to show for it, right? We just made a higher high, unless you go back in time, right? So let's say this is a supply and demand area, right? And you see price action reject, right? Well, what are you going to do? You can set a short position up here based on the supply and demand area and take profit at the next area of support and resistance, right? And price is going to end up hitting that level, right? Actually, even goes more. Okay, so now let's get to the second time we reach this level, right? Now look, right? Now you kind of have more of a supply and demand area, right? Price reaches the supply and demand area again, right? And as long as you have price action like you do right here, right? Break above, break under, come down and retest, you can take a trade right here, right? But the important thing is that you have to be certain that it's a supply and demand area. That's the most important thing, right? See right here, price actually never takes profit, right? It's going to end up taking profit right there, right? But look, you could have taken another entry over here, right? Another entry right here, right? Where you could take profit at this level right here, and then boom, right? Literally, these to me are called bounce trades, right? Bounce trades, where you have a supply and demand area, right? And you can just stack orders at that level, right? And if it breaks through, you break through. But in this instance, look, prices can't break through, so we're just shorting every time we come here, right? Short, right? What happens here? Short, right? What happens here? Short, right? These are trades where, one, you have to be certain you have a supply and demand area, and two, these are bounce trades, right, where you can take trades at these highs and short to the next level. I wouldn't hold trades out like this, right? But when is the best time to really use a setup like this, right? And it could be a little confusing, right? Because this kind of, this is kind of counter trend trading, right? We're in an uptrend, right? If you see, price has been in an uptrend this entire time, and then we're shorting up here, which makes no sense, right? But that's the power of the supply and demand area. When you can identify a supply and demand area, you can capitalize off of it, right? I'm going to show you right now the best time to take a trade off a supply and demand area, right? To me, the best time to take a supply and demand area trade is off here and the one coming up right now. The reason why is because there is proof as to why it's a supply and demand area, right? Over here, you had a high, right? We dropped down. We come over here, we had a high, we dropped down. But now we're approaching the same level we haven't broken through, which means this level is slowly becoming a strong level of supply and demand, right? And as you can see over here, you could have simply shorted off a supply and demand, and price just dropped an insane amount of pips, right? I'll probably reckon this is over 150, right? This is 150 pips, right? So this is one of the best places to short, but the best time to short is over here, right? When you have more data and more proof that this is a supply and demand area. Look over here. We have reached this level again, right? So let's say we're coming into session and we reach this level again, right? You're hoping for one or two things, right? One, price breaking up, retesting, right? Or taking that supply and demand trade right here down to this next level, right? That's what you're hoping for, right? And if you're gonna see right here, price is going to continuously reject this level, right? Look at this. Price cannot break through. Wick, close back under, break through. Price can't break through, guys. So, you can enter a position up here. Short this level, right? And look what happens, bro. Look what happens, guys. Huge, literally move off of no trend line, no Fibonacci, no support. No patterns, right? None of that. It is simply price action. I'm literally reading what price has done, right? I'm coming into session, I'm going, okay, price failed to break here. Price shorted off this level here. We're back at this level. We have price action showing us that we're rejecting this level and we're shorting, right? We could potentially short. So I'm gonna set a short position somewhere in here. Stops above this wick because that's where price landed. And this is a 5-to-1, 135 pips, no drawdown. Price literally melted, right? And came all the way down for us, right? Now, the next time we reach this level, right? What happens, right? Let's take another scenario off this same level, right? We're going to come over here and we're going to see price start to break above, right? And now we're starting to wick to the upside, right? So, okay, now we're wicking to the upside. We can take the same trade, right? As price starts to break under, we're going to short, right? Well, guess what? Price actually ends up breaking above, finally. So now you're looking for one of two things, right? A retest of this level to go long, or if price starts to break under, we're going to continue with the shorts, right? And I'm going to tell you why, right? We're going to continue with the shorts. So what happens? Price comes to our level of interest, never retests, right? We probably be looking for longs as we break back above, right? Wicks again, and then price is going to wick to the upside, and then as price starts to break under, right, we're going to have our stop loss, we're going to have our take profit, and price is going to melt with no drawdown. And it literally melts even more. Look at the trades that come from supply and demand zones, guys. Literally look at them, right? So in this area, right, in this area, we broke above, right, and now we go back to our regular setup, right? Break, and then come down, retest, go long. But here, it didn't have a retest. It just came down so far, started rejecting to the upside, and as we break under, we're going to go with the supply and demand setup, right? We're literally going to short, and when we short, we have literally no drawdown, straight profit, all the way down to here. This is a very great trade, amazing trade, and if anybody were to be in this, it's a guaranteed dub, you know, like a guaranteed dub. Beautiful setup, and you can see that all I'm doing is basing this trade off of basically just, you know, price action in the one supply and demand area. Right now, why would I enter the trade even though we broke above? You have to remember that once we break above, if we don't retest this level, right, when you go to the higher time frames, you know what it's gonna look like? It's just gonna look like a wick, right? It literally looks like just a wick over here, right? Look at the weekly time frame. Just keep going to the higher time frames. Like, it literally ended up just being a wick over here, and then it broke right back under, right? So this is where you have to manipulate each time frame, right? So this is an introduction to supply and demand area. All I'm going to do for chapter 2 or part 2 of this is show you a buying scenario where you can continuously buy off a supply and demand area, and that's going to be it, right? There's not much to talk about supply and demand. Supply and demand areas can be one of the best setups that you could honestly really take. You can literally see here that we capitalize on 2 huge moves here, and then 3 little mini moves you could have all the way over here. Although I probably would have stayed away from this level over here, because at that point, remember, none of this is over here. It's just a higher high, right? You could have shorted here, you could have shorted here, you could have shorted here, and you very well could have shorted here, right? So supply and demand is a concept that I love. When I take a trade off of it, I'm very confident on it, and identifying supply and demand can really change and really make a huge fucking trade, as you just seen right here. So if you have any questions, let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next chapter, supply and demand part 2. Deuces.